Origins of the universe. To be honest, if someone asked me where did the universe come from, I don't know. I don't know what was before it, or even asking what was before the universe, if that's even a coherent question. Because, after all, time began at the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang or whatever. So if you ask what was before the Big Bang, that doesn't make any sense. It's like asking what is north of the North Pole. There's nothing north of the North Pole, but
Santa Claus. Sorry.
Just like God.
He's not spatially located, so he wouldn't be north of the North Pole because he's omnipresent.
But according to mainstream cosmology and mainstream science, the Big Bang happened 13.7 billion years ago, and the origins of the universe was hydrogen and helium gas, and the basic laws of physics, the strong and weak nuclear force, and electromagnetism and gravity. And from this came clouds of hydrogen attracted to each other, which form stars, and they basically are self-imploding balls of hydrogen. And all the stars that we see start out as hydrogen gas, and our sun is, I think, 70% hydrogen and 20% helium. And inside of a star, it gets so hot that it becomes a nuclear furnace, and elements, the periodic table of elements that you learn about in chemistry class, the table of elements they have up on the wall, those were forged in the center of high-mass stars because it's so hot. The atoms are forged from hydrogen to helium to calcium, and I don't know the exact, how it goes, but those elements came from stars and are produced in the center of stars, and that's where the elements came from. The Earth in our solar system was formed 4.5 billion years ago, and here we are today.
Thanks, William. Questions now to Vocab. What do you believe about origins?
Since I make no cover about saying that the ultimate authority I appeal to is not myself, my ultimate authority is what God has said. It's the only thing that can stand. It's the only sure thing. Then when you ask about origins, I would turn to Genesis. I would turn to Colossians 1:15-20. He created all things. Passages like that. And furthermore, I would turn to places that talk about Yahweh upholding nature. So why are things sustained, not even just created, but why is the universe the way it is? Psalms talks all these places about Yahweh being what you might call, in a sense, not reducing him to this, but the regulative principle of the universe. And then when I say, does this make sense? Well, when I think about what creation is, we ask, is this physical stuff necessary? And if it's not, if nothing here is necessary, if it's all contingent, depending upon something else, none of us are necessary because something existed before us, yet we weren't here. So we're all contingent. Therefore, we're not necessary. What about this physical universe is necessary? There seems to be nothing that is logically necessary. It all seems to be contingent. So then what do? We have a self-creating universe, which seems to be a logical contradiction. Do we have matter existing eternally, which seems to go against everything we know about the laws of physics? What do we have there? But if we have something that within itself has its own sufficient reason for existence, again, I am that I am. If we have something that is not material, therefore not violating any law of physics, if we have something that is unembodied mind, yet personal, therefore explaining personality, not just physical things, it makes sense to say, and this is God. So obviously I say the God of the Bible created it all.
Can I respond real quick?
You guys are you have 10 minutes to respond.
Oh, cool.
now.
Oh, okay.
Chop it up, homie.
Notice that he didn't actually appeal to anything in the real world. He didn't appeal to evidence. He didn't appeal to science.
Laws of physics didn't appeal to those.
He appealed to what was written in the Bible. Also,
William, you know I said the laws of physics, right?
Oh, the laws of physics. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Just
how old do you think the universe is?
don't know how old the universe is.
If you could just take a rough guess.
I don't think it's as old as you think it is, but then again, neither of us really know for certain, do we?
Are you a young Earth creationist?
I would tentatively describe myself as a so-called young Earth person, but here's the thing. instead of giving an account for the origin of things, you have to jump to what you think is a winner, which is the age of the universe, not why it's here, which is the question being asked. But I'm completely kid to say I think it's younger than most the sort of establishment thinks it is. I'm okay with that. But how old? I don't know.
Like 6,000 years old?
I don't know. Where does the Bible say how old the universe is?
It doesn't say, but I'm just asking. I mean, are
Right.
you maybe 10,000?
I don't know because it doesn't say. I already said I'm tentatively younger than you, but it doesn't say. But that, let's just say I'm wrong about that. Let's just say the tentativeness shouldn't even be there. I should just be over here. You still got all this work to do to explain why a logically unnecessary, there's nothing necessary about anything physical, why it's here. You have no principle of sufficient reason. You have this effect, and you have no cause. You have information, and yet you have no mind. That's a big problem.
So
I would say
think-
you can't hurdle it.
You think God caused the universe to begin existing?
Yes.
And did he do this ex nihilo, or that means from nothing?
Creatio ex nihilo. The material world, the visible things are made out of what is invisible.
Okay, so that violates everything we know about cause and effect. So I'll give you an example. If a carpenter is going to build a table, he assembles wood and nails and screws, and then he builds the table. So he causes the table to come into existence. But
To take its
he
current
does it
structure. He doesn't really cause it to come into existence. You're equivocating. The pieces are already present. The
Right.
matter is there.
But
He gives
this
it
is
a structure.
I'm saying not about ex nihilo. I'm saying about what we know about cause and effect. Every example of cause and effect we have ever observed,
Yeah.
there's three parts. There is someone doing the effector, someone exerting causal influence,
Someone,
and then there's
yeah.
something being causally influenced, like the wood and the screws and the nails becoming the table, and then there's the effect, the table. But what vocab is postulating is God causing the universe to begin existing when there wasn't anything to causally influence. So there
That's
wasn't a
what
step number
creation
two.
is.
But
That's
so
what origin point zero is,
What
William.
you're postulating is you're saying God caused the universe to begin existing without actually causally influencing anything, which is the same thing as saying God didn't cause anything.
Why can't God act? And furthermore, if you notice...
Why can't God act?
Well,
can God just poof something out of thin air?
Well, what is at the bedrock of every single thing every one of us sees? It's information. The reason why you look the way you do at the bottom is a language inside your body that's working right now. The reason why the rock has the structure it does is it has embedded information. That is what makes the physical show run. Here's the thing. You know information runs the show. There's nothing else at bottom of information. And there is no exception to the fact that anytime any of us experience information, which is ordered bits, which is specific sequences, non-random, it's always the product of mind. You never get information without mind.
Yes, you do. But you just changed the subject. We're talking about the cause of the universe. Did God cause the universe to begin existing from nothing?
No, you're missing it. What I'm saying is at the bottom of the universe is information in language. This is God's word upholding everything at rock bottom.
So there's
I didn't change the
information.
subject.
There's information we see.
Yes.
How do you get from there is information to the specific God of Christianity? How do you make that leap?
I don't go that way.
That's what you were just arguing for.
No. I'm demonstrating a case of why the triune God is necessary when we
But-
talk about these things. I'm not going back to him. I'm starting with him, and I'm showing you the case that it is. But notice again, you can't put anything there, William. You don't have an information source.
What was the first thing I said? I don't know where the universe came from. And as far as an information source, DNA is not information. It's
Excuse me?
it's chemicals.
Well, no. Chemicals are the vehicles for the information. It literally is information embedded in physical things. It's not mere physicality. I mean, this is not like a Christian creation thing. Like people that study microbiology and all down here, that's what they understand it to be. I mean, you can read statement after statement from Crick and all these guys that say the physical thing is like the vehicle for carrying the information.
Okay,
it's not a guess, William,
Again,
to
I'll
say
ask.
that information requires mind. We know it does.
Okay, there's information, and you say, therefore, it requires mind. How do you get from there to the specific God of Christianity? You're making a leap without justifying it.
let's just say that's true. I deny that, but let's just say it's true.
No, you already admitted to me
Let's
that
just say it's true.
intelligent design can only go to the big three, meaning Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. You can't prove Christianity just from design.
Let's say you're correct. On that, atheism does not obtain because theism holds. I don't agree because that's not the way I argue. I said again and again, it's epistemologically necessary to hold to God's word to have anything.
Okay, two
but
things
you
to
see
that.
that if what you're saying, if I grant the argument that I haven't done the right job or whatever, atheism still fails to obtain.
My argument is not that Christianity, or your argument is not sufficient to justify your conclusion, therefore my argument is true. That's not my argument. I'm just pointing out that there's a flaw in your argument. And second, your argument that someone has to be able to account for what's necessary, opposed to all of us and everything we see, which is contingent. To then go from we can't account for what's necessary, therefore the Christian God exists or the Christian God is responsible, is to appeal to a fallacy called an argument from ignorance. You can't explain something, so therefore you're just going to posit your, the religion that you grew up with or whatever.
I know that God is logically necessary. Therefore, I see things that are logically unnecessary that are contingent upon who he is.
How do you define knowledge?
Justified true belief.
So if you have justified true belief that the Christian God exists, what do you need faith for?
See, what you just did is not the Christian definition of pisteo. It's not blind faith, ignorance, hoping, believing what you know ain't so. That's not faith. That's not the Greek word pisteo. That's the modern reinterpretation. But Christians have always interpreted faith as reliable trust. Trust in one who's reliable. It's simply trust. Because God is trustworthy, the very nature of who he is.
I think if you have a justified reason to believe something, you don't need to appeal to faith. If there's evidence for something, you don't need faith. If there isn't evidence for something, you have to make an extra
I don't agree with your definition of faith, but you're the one who keep on appealing to I don't knows and I don't knows, but I still believe, not me.
So when I say I don't know where the universe came from, am I saying that I believe that I know where it came from?
No, you're not.
Exactly. So I'm not positing a positive belief when you are. I'm
Okay.
honestly admitting I don't know where the universe came from.
Okay. Are we? I'm good if he's good. I think we went over on the last one.
I don't think you answered the question about how your belief in creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing, violates what we know about cause and effect. There's always three steps to cause and effect. Something doing the causing, something getting caused, and then the effect. The result of steps 1 and 2. But what you're appealing to is a God causing the universe to begin existing without actually causally influencing anything, which is no different from saying that God didn't cause anything.
Okay, if that is true, how does that work for your worldview? If that's what you're saying, you can't do that at point creation, which I'm saying no one's observed literal creation out of nothing, but yet stuff is here. So if you believe those three things are the key and you still believe stuff is here, how does it work with your worldview? How does it not discount yours as well?
Maybe it implies that there was pre-existing material before the universe. There's pre-existing
So before
something.
time and space, stuff existed in time and space?
Maybe pure energy, maybe another dimension, who knows? But what you're positing, my point is that what you're positing with creatio ex nihilo is incoherent.
Okay, how did you get that stuff that's pre-existent? You just kicked it back a bit.
Do I have to have an answer to that to point out that there's a flaw in your argument?
No, but what it does is shows that within your framework, you have literally no resources to answer any big questions.
So
morality, logic,
No,
the origin
what does
of the
morality
universe.
have to do with this?
Well, what we discussed earlier, I'm saying within your sort of toolkit of worldview, you don't have it there. So you say I don't know and say shame on you, Christian, for just believing in faith, but how is that intellectually satisfying? That seems...
So now you're appealing to a fallacy called appeal to consequences, that you're not going to believe something because of the consequences of it. If it's true that I don't know where the universe came from and it's intellectually not satisfying, then that doesn't mean that doesn't justify having faith in a 2,000-year-old myth story from the Middle East.
But it does admit that atheism is intellectually unsatisfying at key points.
Very good. William, why don't you go ahead and wrap up your position here? Take a minute, then Vocab can follow.
All right. I think intellectual honesty requires that you are consistent and you don't, well, for one, appeal to fallacious lines of reasoning, and that you make appeals to what is verifiable, what is demonstrable, and not to what is emotionally satisfying. And I'm not, I guess, I mean, maybe it's who I am. I'm not going to believe something just because it's emotionally satisfying or because the alternative makes me uncomfortable. If I say I don't know where the universe came from, I mean, that's just me being honest. And I don't think that's a reason to justify pretending to know something that you don't know.
I don't need a final thing. I'm cool with moving on to questions.
All right, let's go straight to the questions. There's a big line, so let's ask them quick, answer them quick.
Hey guys, just an observation first. You're both, to some extent, and I would say vocab, so far you're winning at this, to some extent you're both, and vocab I'd say you're winning at this, doing the, but you can't explain it either kind of thing, which makes this really unsatisfying. The other thing is, back to you vocab, just a couple of questions. Can you define, I got it now, thanks. Can you define randomness? Can you tell us which of all of the, quote, laws of physics are being broken with the idea of an eternal universe those are? Can you be more specific with some of those things?
With the second one, we would say the second law of thermodynamics.
Can you tell me what the first one is?
Neither created nor destroyed, which I would say it's also matter neither created nor destroyed. What I would say it also violates that one, because how do you get anything?
Okay, so what you're saying basically is, I mean, moving on from the very first definition, which is randomness, which you refer to quite often, if not in specific words, at least in what you're saying.
Yeah.
You seem to be saying that there is required an objective creator, an objective reason. I also incidentally hear a lot of where is used, where people mean to say why. Where does the essence of a water bottle come from? Where does justice come from? Where does the universe come from? Where? So it's supposed to be a separate place and a separate person.
Underwear?
Underwear, there you go.
My son would like that.
So when you say, I mean, you didn't do a great job of defining the term necessary philosophically, but would you say that you need an objective cause to all of this? Something separate and apart that's unchanging?
I would say everyone needs.
I'm asking you specifically.
Oh, do you mean like is like
in
some
your
kind
argument
of psychological
No,
need
does your
fulfillment?
argument require an objective God, an objective purpose, objective morality, all of these things? You know what I mean by objective, right?
Yeah, but I would say because of God has revealed himself who he is, knowing who he is, then therefore informs me that we actually do have objective things.
You can see where this looks like hedging, right? And you're not answering me directly?
I never want to argue up to God, because that would be denying, in my view, the lordship of Christ.
Okay.
I have to argue as a Christian if I'm going to be consistent from him to things. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to hedge. I'm trying to have a consistent paradigm.
Then how else do I ask to get a quicker answer about this objective thing? What is objectivity necessary in your, to coin a phrase, your worldview?
Because of who God is, yes. And I would actually say because of what we see, yes.
Why is objective better than subjective?
The question assumes an objective answer.
My question?
Yeah, it assumes a yes or no, which would be an objective truth.
That was not a yes or no question.
No,
that was a why is.
No, when you say why is better, you're assuming there's an objective standard for something to be better too.
Aren't
See,
you
the
assuming that objective is better?
Yes, but that's okay because I assume the triune God. Therefore, I have the resources within the worldview. As soon as someone
it's
says
not okay
better,
if you're not answering my question.
no, do you see what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I do. You're telling me that I'm not intellectually equipped to answer it because I
No.
don't have your worldview.
No, I didn't say
Which is
ins-
basically what you've been saying about William this entire time.
I never said a person wasn't intellectually equipped because it's not an argument from one is smarter, therefore you winning.
Not what I meant.
Okay, just so you know, I'm not saying
Okay.
that. I'm saying for within the sort of what you might call worldview resources. That's all I'm saying.
But then I'll be more specific
I'm saying
about morality. There needs to be an objective higher director or director or director principle.
A standard
for
by which
morality,
to
a
measure.
standard.
With
Why is that better?
See,
You don't like my use of the word better.
No,
what
what
would
I'm
you
saying
rather I
is
say?
anything we say about this has to assume there's an objective standard, and I agree with that. If there is no objective standard, there is nothing. There is no way to get anything.
All right, let me rephrase the question then. Do you believe, without using the word better, I don't know quite else how to put this, is subjective an improper way to exercise morality?
Something that's subjective decisions or feelings about things aren't necessarily false, but that doesn't mean that they're justified either. So someone can make a decision that's subjective, but they could be right or wrong about it. It can't be a final court of appeal. It doesn't necessarily make something false if it's subjective, but it's not the final court of appeal because no human is autonomous and can say, I say, therefore.
No.
Do you see what I'm
right.
saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. No human is autonomous, but apparently we seem to operate from subjectivity all the time.
Yes, we do. None of us.
Is that wrong or bad or?
We can't escape the prison of ourself in that way, and that's why I believe the doctrine of revelation is necessary. I don't view it as extraneous. I view it as absolutely necessary if we're to know anything. God to reveal Himself.
It's just necessary. It's not better or worse or anything like that.
Well, if it's necessary and God did it, it's better.
Oh, so you get to refer to better. Why?
That's because I have God. He's the standard by which to judge these things.
Well, I'm sorry. You understand how that doesn't work for me, right? And how it looks like you're not answering that question?
I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
Okay.
That's all I can.
Now I'm asking you, do you understand?
I understand why you don't like that, yes.
Okay, good.
I understand
That's
that.
it. I know what. Thank you.
For William, I have a comment and observation, and then a question. My observation is that you started out this evening saying that you don't believe in God because there's no evidence for God. And then when Vocab gave evidence from information, you said, okay, there is evidence for God, but that doesn't get us to the God of the Bible. I have a problem with that. I'm going to come back to that. But you also said that that you don't know what caused the universe, therefore you have nothing to defend. But yet I'm assuming that you believe that you do know that there was at least a material cause, and you're going to have to accept that by faith because there's no way to scientifically verify that. That's scientifically unverifiable. It's beyond the scope of science. It's a unique event that we don't have access to. Neither one of us does. Here's my question. Since you said you wanted evidence for God and that there was no evidence for God, when He gave evidence for God from information, you admitted that it was evidence. Information we know is immaterial. We know from the laws of information it has to be statistics or signals, syntax or code, semantics or meaning, pragmatics or action, and alphabetics or result. And the information that we see in the DNA molecule has all 5 levels of prescriptive information. It's not part of the molecule. So my question to you is, how do you account for the origin of the prescriptive information that's carried by the molecule, not the origin of the chemistry or the molecule itself? Because the information is separate from that. It's like spilling ink onto a sheet of paper. You're not going to get information out of that. Information requires an intelligent agent that puts information into the system. So the bottom line is, my question is, not the origin of the molecule, not the origin of the chemistry, not the origin of the material stuff that carries the information. How do you account for the origin of the information, the prescriptive information that's carried by the molecule?
Okay. So you're going to have to go back and check the tape. The first thing I said was not that what you said. It was that there is no evidence for a specific God. That's what I said. And there isn't. So what you're appealing to is intelligent design, that they're because of what we see, DNA, information, as you call it.
Not as I call it, it's information science.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a fact. It's
that
a
therefore
science.
there must be some kind of designer.
That's the most rational inference, yeah.
So there's a couple things that, first of all, the hypothesis of intelligent design is not scientific. That's why when you go on Barnes & Noble and you look in the religion section, you'll find it.
Did I say intelligent design?
You're appealing to science and scientific evidence.
I'm appealing to a creator. I'm not going to say just an intelligent
Since the
design.
books are in the wrong section of the store, therefore it's not science. Yeah. You know that's just name calling, right? It's not science. It doesn't get to be in the game. It's just name calling.
Can I finish my
It's not actually an argument.
explanation? So any scientific hypothesis that has a supernatural element in it cannot be tested or observed or falsified. So when someone says, we see information in a cell, DNA, we see design in nature, an intelligent agent did it, a god did it, or the God of Christianity did it. You can't test that. You can't falsify that. And there's no way to either confirm or disconfirm that it was a supernatural intelligence.
Well, then
so
by
what
the-
you're appealing to is a God of the Gaps fallacy.
No, I'm not going to let you get away with that, because God of the Gaps is if I
Hey,
said
this is really more
I don't
questions.
understand. I don't
I don't
understand this. Then I'm just going to throw God in there, and I'm saying that the evidence leads to a creator. The evidence.
That's the
leads
thing,
to
it
a
doesn't.
creator.
The
Well,
evidence, there's
I'm
no
gonna-
way to test it, there's
I'm gonna
no way
leave
to
it at this.
observe it.
I'll let it get back to you guys, but I'm going to say by your definition, then evolution is unscientific, because it can't account for the origin of life. It can't account for the information required to go to the next step. It can't account for polystratic fossils. It can't account for the gaps in the record, or the abrupt appearance of fossils, or it can't account for the stasis that we see in the fossil record. So by your definition, it's unscientific.
Well, that's not my definition, and that's not the
Well-
definition of what evolution is. You said the origins of life. That's chemistry. That's abiogenesis. That's not the theory of evolution.
Well, it's actually chemical evolution. That's what that scientific realm is called.
Darwinian
it's called chemical
evolution. The theory of evolution
Yeah.
deals with the diversity of life, not the origins of life.
Well, you understand
it's
there's
not
something-
within the explanation. It's
It's
not
not-
within the theoretical model.
Well, chemical evolution is something you do require within your system.
Abiogenesis,
You have to
it
get
would
life
be-
from non-life.
Abiogenesis is chemistry. Evolution is biology.
No,
They're
it's-
two different fields of
I
science.
understand what you're saying, but it's called chemical evolution. That's what they refer to it as when they talk about how do you get the origin of the first DNA. And
Okay,
that's
but
why
you
they
said
have
it was
the-
my definition of evolution, which isn't
Well,
true. We're talking about biology. We're talking about
That's-
DNA and information in cells, and then you jump to abiogenesis, the origins of life, which is chemistry.
Right. I mean, I would just say, hey, Scott, we should probably, tell people to have shorter questions. I think we can have another person go, but we should really tell them, like, can't do those long speeches.
What is the origin of deception?
The origin of deception?
How did deception come to be if it was never and then now it was?
Well, if you have this concept of deception, you have to have a concept of truth. Because deception would be something contra to veritas. If you have deception, it necessitates that you have the concept of truth. Within an evolutionary framework, there is no oughts like that. There's just the ises. And so when I appeal to truth, I'm appealing to the very standard of who God is. The God who cannot tell a lie, in the words of James.
How do you define truth?
You're asking me how I define truth? What is?
Like what corresponds with reality? Like a correspondence theory of
Yeah,
truth?
you could say that.
Does the biblical God correspond with reality in any way?
Man, every way. He's at the bottom of it.
Is that demonstrable? Does
By-
God...
Yes, by the fact that we're here weighing evidences, relying upon the laws of logic, utilizing everything that we're doing here tonight demonstrates it.
You
'Cause
see how
it's-
that's an entirely unsatisfactory explanation?
Well, that's why you're an atheist. I mean, that's what you were going to say. But the question is it really? Because
Yes.
you just don't like it. Because I don't think you like the
No,
God of the
it's-
Bible. You're
it's-
perfectly willing to talk about truth and justice. I didn't hear you saying about the American way. But you can throw all these concepts around. But within your worldview, you just say, these are my axioms. I'm saying, where did that axiom come from? What's it standing
Are you
on?
saying you don't have axioms?
I most certainly do, but the axioms have to be able to answer the questions, and they have to be logically consistent. They can't just be an axiom just in the middle of nothing. They have to fit within your framework, otherwise you don't have coherence.
So is the statement God exists an is statement or an ought statement?
God exists, God is.
That's an is statement.
Yeah.
Is the statement God commanded us a set of rules to follow? Is that an is statement or an ought statement?
Well, in a way, both. God's commands flow from the nature of who he is. So they're not arbitrary, they're based upon his very character.
So you're trying to... if God said something, if God thought something, that's a fact. That's an is statement. If God commanded us a set of moral rules to follow, that is an is statement.
Well, I said it's more like both.
So you're
I'm trying to
get an
answer your
ought from an
question.
is.
No, I don't really understand what you're saying. Oh, you're
So-
saying God is, he's personal, and because God is, he has oughts. There is no ought on your framework.
There isn't any in yours either. You can't derive a moral ought from Christianity. You can't turn an is of Christianity into an ought. The same that
Why not?
anyone in any other philosophy.
You got to
or
demonstrate
worldview-
that, right? He's a personal being on Christian theism. Why can he not command things?
He can command things, but that's an is statement. To say God commanded something, that's an is statement. That's not an ought statement. The only reason that someone would agree to that or to live by that is to avoid the punishment, which would make it a rational ought. They're doing it for a reason. If you don't want to go to hell, then you ought to live by God's rules. If you want to please God, then you ought to live by God's rules. But they're rational oughts. There's no such thing as an unconditionally objective ought. Even in his worldview, he just glosses over it and says, "Oh, just turn this is into an ought." So any worldview that you have, you can't derive an ought statement or what you should do from what is.